afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Awaken the World. This is an Awaken Facebook Live event, and today we're going to be talking about planetary and cosmic influences on humankind. And this is kind of an interesting subject, and there's a lot of, how can I put this politely, New Age material covers all sorts of lunatic reasons why this is really important. And I'm going to share with everyone the truth of why indeed we are affected by planetary and cosmic influences, as well as all other sorts of influences. And we're going to talk about some of those today as well. And first and foremost, what we're really dealing with here is the fact that our body is not a body per se, but it is an energetic form. It is energy itself. Vibratory states of existence. Hello, Susan. Hello, Cindy. Nice to see you. Hopefully the live screen will catch up soon. It's quite a bit behind today for some reason. I'm not really sure why. So as I was saying, we are indeed an energetic being. We are not a being made of material that we would think of as matter per se, okay? The actual percentage of matter in a human being is so infinitesimally small, it can hardly be measured. And the reason being is all the matter that ever existed on the head of that pin at the moment of the Big Bang. The rest of it is really empty space. Hello, Devora. Nice to see you too. So we have Susan, Cindy, and Devora, and Janet Lynn has just showed up too. Hello, Janet. How are you tonight? Or this afternoon. It feels like tonight. So back to this. The body is an energetic being, and we are influenced by all sorts of vibratory states going on around us. Okay? Even to the point where things like power lines, which put out an electromagnetic field, as does the human body, have been found over the years to cause genetic mutation in DNA. You know, I'm sure people heard about this back in the 60s and the 70s when it was common to have row houses underneath the power lines. And they found that over time, that demographic who lived in those areas was more prone to certain types of cancers, certain types of genetic mutation due to that. Our heart puts out a massive electromagnetic signature to a distance of roughly 30 feet as far as we can measure it. And of course, at the consciousness level, at the base consciousness level, that vibratory emanation from the heart heads out into infinity in all directions. And this is true of every energy emanation that occurs from consciousness. And even though we are considered a conscious being on this planet, we're mostly unconscious most of the time. I mean, you just have to look around a little bit and you'll see that that is the case. But we do possess a rudimentary consciousness called the ego. And that consciousness, those energy vibrations, don't stay in the body. The body resonates with them like a bell. And this leads to the various states of disease, sickness, and health issues that we experience. Not so much from outside of ourselves. Believe it or not, we are sovereign beings, and we have sovereign control over this energy field. It's just that we're blissfully unaware of it most of the time. We can be, and I hesitate to use the word attack because it is not an attack, although we can feel like we're being attacked, certainly. We can feel energy intruding upon our energy field Absolutely. And if that energy is dissonant and we do not remove ourselves, we can find ourselves in a dissonant state. Or if it is dissonant and we become aware of it, we can actually actively counteract the dissonance based on our own personal ability to do so. When we talk about things at a more planetary scale, we're going to start with the solar system. One of the common terms you'll hear is retrograde. Mercury is in retrograde or Mars is in retrograde. And, well, what does that actually mean when a planet is in retrograde? And it's very simple. What it means is due to its position in the orbit it's in relative to the Earth, it appears to be moving backwards, even though it's really not. And in those cases, those planets are actually closer to the Earth than they normally would be when they appear to be moving forward. And the energy, the vibratory emanation from the planetary body has a definite effect on the human form, as it does not only on the human form, but every other conscious species on the planet. And some would argue, quite rightly, in the case of larger planetary bodies like the Sun, the effect is literally global. All levels, all of it. When a planet is in retrograde, in other words, appearing to be moving backwards, because of where it is in its orbit, it's actually closer to us. And there is a stronger gravitational pull, which can affect minutely, the distribution of the fluids in our brain in the same way that the moon can. Okay, and those are things at a physical level that manifest at a all police departments know that if it's a full moon and a Friday or Saturday night, boy, it's going to be a rough one. And invariably it is. There is segments of our population who are quite susceptible to the gravitational influences of the moon as a planetary body. Quite susceptible to us. Now, how do we determine the characteristics of each of these planetary bodies? And for myself, I don't look at any of the New Age material. And I'll tell you the reason why. I'm a simple guy. I go back to the source. I go back to the people who first explored it. I go back to the people who did not have the weight of ego or civilization upon them and dedicated every ounce and fiber of their being in pursuing these truths through the entirety of their days. And in the case of astrology and cosmic influences, I always go back to the Vedics. Always back to ancient India. It's true. And I love India. I love the people in India too. I really do. It's a great place. And the Vedic astrology is probably the most precise and concise. Janet brings up nursing homes as well during the full moon, and I had forgotten all about that, but that's exactly right. Nursing homes, psychiatric wards, anyone eating out at a restaurant that serves strange fish. I don't know. Christians. I heard full moons are bad nights for Christians too. Okay, sorry. I'm kind of taking pot shots after my wife's continued experiences today. We'll leave that alone. We'll just leave that alone. Speaking of not nursing homes. No, the mental institutions. No, okay, we'll talk about that later. Back to the whole energy thing. One time in my life, and only one time, was I blessed with experiencing what is known as the singing of the spheres. And I will tell this little story. I was alone out at night. It was about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. and I was sitting in the woods in at this lake shore, and I had a little tiny fire in a little pit in the sand, so that the light wouldn't take away my view of the stars. And it was nearly pitch black, and it was just beautiful. It was serene. It was perfect. And as I gazed up, for the first time in my life, and this will make me tear up because it was the most amazing experience, but every star, every planet I looked at, the frequency changed. The singing that the planets and the stars were doing. Sorry, this is an emotional thing for me because it was one of the pivotal experiences of my existence. The singing of the stars and planets was beyond comprehension, but beyond my ability to put into words right now, and I'm going to try to pull myself back down into thinking about it because the feeling left me stunned for hours afterwards. Every single body in our solar system, every single body in our galaxy, in our universe, is sentient. It possesses consciousness at some level. Perhaps not a consciousness that we can yet communicate with for the most part, but I can tell you personally that this planet is quite capable of communicating with us individually, one-on-one. She really is. As I've talked about before in Garen's story of creation, okay, this sea of consciousness, we are the edifice. The universe, what we call the physical realm, is the edifice of that conscious evolution. And planets and stars and galaxies are all part of this growing sea of consciousness, rising evolution, community, larger and larger communities being formed, and communities within communities, as in the Earth community, as in our solar system. You know, most people are blissfully unaware that our Earth and Sun have a reciprocal relationship. We affect the Sun in the same way that the Sun obviously affects the Earth. Each planet, each body possesses an intelligence, possesses a level of awareness and consciousness. Not that most of us would be able to see it at this point in our evolution. But each one of these vibrates with its own signature, its own energetic wave that it puts out, literally like a bell ringing throughout the whole of the cosmos. And that has a very real effect, a very real resonant effect on the human form. So we're going to talk about a few of the Vedic definitions. And these are nice to look at to get some ideas so we understand. So the sun, of course, represents our soul on the higher level and the ego on a lower level. Okay? It describes who we are within ourselves, the real being we are, that bright, shining light of pure consciousness. Vedic astrology considers the sun as secondary to the rising of the moon and the falling of the moon. The reason being, the rising and the moon, both. And the reason being is that the sun represents our true will, our central purpose in life. A well-placed sun gives intelligence, strong will, vitality, confidence, and courage. If the sun is too strong, It creates pride and tyranny and arrogance, trying to outshine everyone else. What does it sound like we're talking about? The true will, central to life. So the sun represents both. In the one aspect, the sun is the ego, overbearing, wants to control, outshine everyone else, pride, tyranny, greed. The ego as the sun, worshiping the ego. Then there's the higher sun, and that higher sun is the sun of the true self, the self within, which gives us strong will, character of being, vitality, and an authority that leaks out from inside of us. It is not an authority based on power or control or manipulation. It is a natural authority that exudes as an energy field from the being that possesses the sun at the higher state. The moon, of course, rules the second day of the week, Monday, and the moon represents the mother, the divine goddess, and the feminine creative principle. It shows the state of our mind and can therefore influence that state of our mind in the same way that the sun can influence our vitality in the physical form. It can also influence the negative traits if we are not on guard for that as well. And this is what it really comes down to, and we'll pick up that part of the discussion after we discuss the rest of the near planetary objects, okay? Mars, and I believe this is what Cindy was asking about. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy. Was it Mars or Mercury that you were speaking of being in retrograde right now? I'd love to hear. Mars is the planet of projection, aggression, the driving force inside of us, and the courage to wield the sword in face of the dragon. Okay? But of course, in unbalance or ill-placed, we're talking about domination, violence, control. Turns out it was Mercury. Well, guess what? Mercury's up next. Mars at the right distance from the Earth, okay, Mars used properly can give us the capacity to and the confidence to carry out our own will with confidence of goal-orientated action. Tuesday is the day of Mars. Now we'll get to Mercury, and this was the basis of Cindy's question that fostered this video today. So thank you very much, Cindy. Mercury is the indicator of the intellect or the informational capacity of the mind. Okay, so Mercury is the planet that moves the quickest of all. It literally zips around the sun. It's also closest to the sun, and only one side of it stays in perpetual boiling conditions, while the other side is frozen at near absolute zero. Not a pleasant place to live. So the reputation of Mercury is as a messenger or a traveler or a communicator because he's quick, he's decisive, and he moves between things. His nature is mutable, and both other planets and energies affect him and easily influence him as well. He is considered to rule such thing as creative writing, speech, education, calculation, thought, and psychological balance, as well as inner strength, good humor, and believe it or not, commerce in dealing with matters of money. And when we look at all these things, okay, or actually we should finish Mercury off first, and I do apologize for that. When Mercury, which rules Wednesday, becomes too strong in us, okay, our intellect can go awry. And it's funny that this happens on a Wednesday. Like if you think of your work week, if you work a Monday to Friday sort of job, on Wednesday's actually the day, and I do believe, I'm going to have to do a little research, but I do believe this will be proven out in survey, that Wednesday is indeed a tough day productivity wise. The mind doesn't function as well as it tends to function on the Monday, Tuesday, and on the Thursday, Friday. We'll talk a little bit about Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet of spiritual intelligence. And don't run away, though, Cindy. There's more to come. Creativity, luck, and grace all have to do with Jupiter. And Mercury rules the intellect that depends on information. So if you're feeling a little weird today information-wise, like if you're feeling like there's too much information on top of you, and this feeling will actually worsen into Wednesday, okay? There are very easy steps that we can take to counteract these sort of things. And the first thing is to become aware that indeed we are experiencing influences from outside of ourselves. Right? But they're really not. Because, of course, we're all one. And this entire sea of consciousness, this entire universe is all one. But we, in our perception as individuals, quote unquote, definitely do experience the impacts of these planetary bodies and other bodies in relation to the Earth. And a lot of them are not that close. A lot of them are tens of thousands of light years away. For example, the Earth itself at the physical level is being bombarded by cosmic radiation at a phenomenal rate. And if it was not for the bow wave that our sun creates in its moving through the Milky Way galaxy, it literally creates this giant bow wave of energy that deflects and absorbs a vast portion of the particles that would otherwise render life on the inner planets impossible, totally impossible. It is too amazing for words when you really think about it, okay? But indeed, we are affected by these energies, and the very best thing to do is become aware that you are being affected by them. Now, here's one of the issues with our modern day culture, okay? If you were to go back 5,500 years ago, okay, roughly 3,500 BC, and talk to the average Egyptian living in a city, he or she is far more aware of their environment, the effects of the various plants, animals, stars, planets, landscape conditions, interactions with other. They are far more aware and in tune with that. On all three holistic levels of existence, the spiritual, the mental, and the emotional level, than we are today. You know, as we've talked about, we've had our basement flooded now, and, you know, we had 15 millimeters of rain last night, and some more water came in. And, you know, I don't mind swimming in the basement. I don't. The fishing's not so good, although Kelly got a bunch of prawn out of there last night. And the kayaking isn't really fun because it only takes 2 paddles to get all the way to the other side. But one of the interesting things that we noticed in talking with the Strata company about the issues, it's all about maintenance. And we've been driving people to become proactive, okay, instead of reactive. We live in this totally reactive society. Everything's about bandaging things. Everything's about dealing with symptoms, never understanding that the things we're seeing are already dead and gone. They're heading out. We need to deal with the things that are coming, and we need to be proactive. And in that proactive conversation, I said to our manager, the Strata manager, and she's a great woman. Her name is Kathy. I said, Kathy, you know what disturbs me? All summer long, we basically live out in our backyard or outdoors. We take advantage of every minute of our outdoor time. We make our yard beautiful with flowers, and I'm building a nice pond out there, and we have some gardens, and we grow some food where we can. And all summer long, we have a view of 9 other properties leading away from us back up to the street. And we never see another human being outside. We are so caught up in our screens, we are so caught up in this false life that we have built as a society that we're not even aware anymore that we are not separate from nature. In our arrogance as a species, we have seen ourselves, and you know what? We can all give a big round of applause to the Christians and that Bible for starting this whole mess. With the concept that we were given dominion over this planet and that we are something special. We are something special. But so is the deer. So is the lake that provides the fresh water. So is the squirrel. So is the black man in Africa. So is the Chinese woman in China. Every one of them are special. Every plant is special and unique. Everything created on this earth is a one of a kind, never to be seen again. Now that doesn't mean we don't use some of these things, but it means we do so with the reverence of the gift that it represents. And part of us getting back in touch with ourselves, part of us remembering, reassembling our being into that whole being again, is becoming aware of planetary influences, not as a to turn into some sort of cult or practice, but as a realization of the vibratory effect of that big gravitational field and the conscious entity that it is on your state of being. It is not a harmful effect. It is not we aren't supposed to take dominion. No, we're not. You know, there was no, and here's the funny thing, there is no word translatable in dominion that showed up in the original text. No word. The closest word would actually be stewardship. Stewardship is not ownership. Stewardship is looking after something, caring for it, bettering it, keeping it going, serving it well. Who? For the master. We are the masters. We need to steward our planet. We need to love our planet. We need to steward and love everyone. We really do. Why? Because we're all one. Back to this energy thing. The influence of the planets on you is not a negative event. As a matter of fact, it is part and parcel of the whole. You cannot take the earth as a individual entity or one human being as an individual entity and separate from what's happening at a cosmic level and think there's no relationship and no reason why. Every single thing is synchronistic. Coincidence does not exist. It only exists in the mind of the sleeping. Everything has purpose. Everything is used. Everything has value. This is the way our universe functions, both at the physical level when we look closely, and I'm not talking about human beings. We're the ones who queer the system all the time, okay? The system is beautiful, and it works. In the same way, when we become aware that Mercury is in retrograde, we can be on the lookout with okay, so Sunday, and I know that Wednesday, Mercury will be in full retrograde because Mercury rules Wednesday and it's in retrograde right now. And my job involves a lot of thinking where I have to come up with some solid solutions and plans to get things done. What I can do is I can use this. I can go to my boss and, you know, if I want to get called a lunatic and maybe get a week of sick leave for a psychiatric assessment, because this is how most people will take this, okay? I could go to my boss and say, you know what? Mercury's in retrograde right now. This is not the time to be trying to get my mind going on a project like this, because I am not in the right state of mind for this project. And that's going to cause me to fall into the negative effects that the vibrational energy of Mercury brings to the table. I will manifest those, and this project will not turn out the way that we want it to be. How about we put it off a week? And I'm going to focus instead on something that isn't so cerebral. Now, if you're lucky enough to get away with that, good on you. I mean, nice boss. I'd really like to meet them. But the reality of it is this, okay? Let's say you do have a project due. What you can do is you can make sure that you are in the best state of mind you can be in when you're working on the project, and get the work on the project done on Monday and some of it on Tuesday, and leave it alone on Wednesday, and pick it back up on Thursday and finish it off on Friday. We can, and that is a very simple example, but this is literally what we can do. We can engage our conscious knowing that we are being influenced vibrationally, as we always are, and then make conscious choices about that vibrational influence. Now, if you're in a position where you just have to get it done, well, that's the reality of it. But at least with you consciously aware of it, you can take steps to counteract that. You can keep yourself calm, you can keep yourself centered, you can keep yourself in a good state of mind and a clear state of being, and give yourself necessary breaks to gain focus and remove yourself from environments that will cause you to lose focus. And this can imply with you know, I do it personally with electromagnetic fields. Like if I'm out walking a cut line, I will not walk the power line, cut line. Even if it's easier and the trail's better, I won't do it. The noise alone and the feeling that I can feel in my body, it feels like my molecules are being danced apart. And I'd rather do that on my own when I want to, not when some power line demands it. Cindy Redmond says, acknowledge and find solutions, stay grounded. You know what? That literally sums up the last 5 minutes of my blabbing in like 7 words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Way to go, Cindy. Acknowledge and find the solutions, right? Acknowledge the presence of that vibrational field. Acknowledge your need to still do what you need to do, and then find the solutions and stay grounded in those solutions. So before we wrap it up today, I just want to ask if there's any more questions for today, because we will not be back on until Sunday morning. I invite everyone to stop by the Help Awaken YouTube page or channel on Sunday. If you have any direct questions or you need some help with something, we're really encouraging people just to be willing to come out and let it out. Not only is help available for all of us, this way we learn to help each other too. You know, I'm going to put it to you like this. I know that so many of you, and when I say you, I'm speaking to the whole of the human race, okay? Hide things deep inside yourself because you're too afraid of what others are going to think. And what ends up happening is you end up suffering continuously. Sometimes it's a low-level suffering. Sometimes the suffering is really heavy. And this suffering happens because your ego says to you that it's more important that others think well of you, that it's more important that everyone views you the way you want them to, than it is to stop the suffering and let it go. And a lot of people need help in that. Here's the gift. When you have the courage to open up and say, you know, This is what's really getting me right now that I need help with. As my wife, I had to kick her butt towards it a little bit, but I helped her along until she finally was able to say, I'm still really having a hard time with this. And I encouraged her and got her to get on the phone with her mother today. And that's a discussion for another day. Oh, sorry, that wasn't an evil enough laugh. There we go. The point is this. When we have the courage to open up, when we have the courage to expose ourselves, we are lending that courage to 1,000 people behind us who, but for your willingness, would not have found the strength themselves. This is the gift you can offer. This is a gift we all offer. That's why, I'll never turn away from the monitor if my eyes are tearing up because of the emotions that I feel. And they are emotions because they're all wonderful. And they come welling up from within instead of starting as thoughts up here and then vibrating through down here. Much love to you all. I look forward to you coming tomorrow or on Sunday. And if not, we'll see you on the Sunday live. And of course, let's just be perfectly clear about this. Any videos that are unscheduled will be live on Facebook. All the scheduled material will be on YouTube. And the reason being is with YouTube channel, we have to stick to very strict upload times and schedules in order to maintain our channel status. Excuse me. And of course, with Facebook, that's not a concern. So yes, you will always be able to find videos here on Facebook, and we will always post the links after the YouTube videos are done. Much love, namaste, have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again soon.